Once upon a time, in a peaceful village surrounded by dense forests, the villagers lived happily, farming and raising their families. However, their peace was shattered when an ogre appeared. This terrifying creature, towering over the trees, had sharp teeth and glowing red eyes. It roared through the village, demanding food and valuables. If the villagers refused, the ogre threatened to destroy their homes. Fear gripped the village as the ogre's terror began. The ogre's attacks became more frequent, and the villagers grew desperate. They gave him their crops, livestock, and even their savings, hoping he would leave them alone. But the ogre was never satisfied. He wanted more and more, leaving the villagers with nothing. Among the villagers was a young man named Thomas. Known for his courage and cleverness, Thomas couldn't stand to see his village suffer. He decided it was time to take a stand. Thomas gathered the villagers and spoke with determination. "We can't live in fear anymore," he said. "We must fight back and drive the ogre away." The villagers were hesitant. They were afraid of the ogre's strength and power. "He's too strong," an old man said. But Thomas reminded them that unity was their greatest weapon. "If we work together and use our wit, we can defeat him," he insisted. Slowly, hope began to spark in their hearts. Determined to face the ogre, Thomas spent days planning. He studied the forest where the ogre lived, looking for weaknesses. He discovered that the ogre had a lair in a dark cave surrounded by thorny bushes. Thomas also noticed that the ogre was most active at night, meaning he might be vulnerable during the day. With this information, he crafted a clever plan. He shared it with the villagers, who agreed to help him. The plan was risky but brilliant. Thomas suggested setting traps around the ogre's cave. These traps would slow him down and give the villagers time to act. They gathered ropes, sharp stakes, and nets, working silently to avoid attracting the ogre's attention. Meanwhile, Thomas prepared a distraction. He created a large, glowing lantern to mimic the moon, hoping it would confuse the ogre and lead him straight into the traps. On the chosen night, Thomas and the villagers put their plan into action. The traps were set, and the glowing lantern was placed near the cave. The villagers hid in the shadows, waiting nervously. As expected, the ogre emerged, drawn by the strange light. He roared in anger, thinking someone was invading his territory. The moment he stepped forward, his foot got caught in a hidden rope trap, and he stumbled. The ogre roared furiously, struggling to free himself from the trap. As he thrashed, more traps were triggered. Nets fell from the trees, tangling him further, and sharp stakes blocked his path. The villagers, armed with courage, joined in. They threw stones and flaming torches, keeping the ogre distracted. Though the ogre was strong, he couldn't break free. Thomas, standing tall, shouted, "This is our village. You will never terrorize us again." Realizing he was trapped, the ogre tried to bargain. "Let me go, and I'll never return," he growled. But Thomas didn't trust him. He knew the ogre could return stronger and angrier. Instead, Thomas proposed a deal. "If you leave the forest and never harm anyone again, we'll spare your life," he said firmly. The ogre hesitated but saw no other choice. Defeated, he promised to leave and never bother the village again. To ensure the ogre kept his promise, Thomas and the villagers escorted him to the edge of the forest. They watched as he disappeared into the mountains, far away from their home. Relief washed over the villagers, and they cheered for Thomas. "You're our hero," they exclaimed. For the first time in months, the village felt safe. Thomas, however, reminded them that their unity and courage were the real reasons for their victory. The villagers worked together to rebuild what they had lost. They replanted their crops, repaired their homes, and celebrated their freedom. Thomas became a symbol of bravery, and the villagers looked up to him as a leader. Children admired his courage, and adults praised his wisdom. Though the ogre was gone, Thomas encouraged everyone to remain vigilant and prepared, reminding them that challenges could arise at any time. As life returned to normal, Thomas found himself reflecting on the events. He realized that fear had been their greatest enemy, even more than the ogre. By overcoming their fear and standing together, the villagers had achieved the impossible. This lesson stayed with Thomas, shaping him into a wise and compassionate leader. He often shared this story with others, inspiring them to face their fears and believe in their strength. News of the village's triumph spread to nearby towns. People marveled at how a small community defeated a terrifying ogre. Travelers visited the village to hear the story firsthand and learn from Thomas's bravery. The villagers welcomed them, proud of their accomplishment. The story of the ogre became a legend, passed down through generations, reminding everyone that courage and unity could conquer even the darkest of threats. Though the ogre was gone, the villagers never forgot the danger they had faced. They built a watchtower at the forest's edge, ensuring they could spot any future threats. Thomas trained a group of volunteers to act as protectors of the village. They called themselves the Guardians, dedicated to keeping their home safe. This sense of preparedness gave the villagers confidence and strengthened their bond as a community. Years later, Thomas looked back on the night they defeated the ogre. He was proud of what they had accomplished but also grateful for the lessons it taught him. He knew that true strength came from within and that even the smallest acts of bravery could create great change. The village thrived, not just because they defeated the ogre, but because they had learned to trust and support one another. The story of Thomas and the ogre became a timeless tale of courage and determination. It was told in songs, plays, and books, inspiring countless people to face their fears. Thomas, now an old man, would often smile as he heard children recount the tale, adding their own twists and turns. For Thomas, the real reward wasn't fame, it was knowing that his actions had brought lasting peace and unity to his beloved village. The tale of the ogre taught the villagers and others who heard it valuable lessons. They learned that fear is only powerful when left unchallenged. By facing their fears, they discovered strength they didn't know they had. Unity and cooperation proved to be their greatest assets, showing that together, they could overcome anything. Most importantly, the story reminded them that bravery is not the absence of fear, but the courage to act despite it.